It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has addressed a message to the nation on the eve of the celebration of the National Mujahid Day, marking the double anniversary of the North Constantine attacks and the Soummam Congress on August 20th, 1955 and 1956 respectively, in which he emphasized the tremendous sacrifices made during the glorious Liberation War. The member countries of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, have said that they were considering to carry out a new diplomatic mission to try and reach a peaceful settlement of the crisis in Niger. And weather-related catastrophes are continuing to wreak havoc across several regions in the world, causing the death and the injury of hundreds of people and leaving thousands of others homeless. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, Algeria will celebrate tomorrow, Sunday, the National Mujahid Day, marking the double anniversary of the North Constantine attacks and the Soummam Congress on August 20th, 1955 and 1956, respectively, amid national efforts to close ranks in drawing the values of national cohesion and unity from the history of the Liberation War and its key events. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has insisted on many occasions on the strengthening of national cohesion and the need for all national forces to defend the interests of the homeland, its sovereignty and the independence of its decision to win the battle for renewal at this crucial stage in the country's history. In a message on the eve of the celebration of the 61st anniversary of Independence and Youth Day, the President of the Republic also stressed the importance of drawing inspiration from the different historical stages of the Liberation War to raise awareness of the efforts expected from everyone. And the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has addressed a message to the nation on the eve of the celebration of the National Mujahid Day, marking the double anniversary of the North Constantine attacks and the Soummam Congress on August 20th, 1955 and 1956, respectively, in which he stressed that this event allows to remember the tremendous sacrifices made during the glorious Liberation War. The celebration this year of the 60th or the 68th anniversary of the North Constantine attack and the 67th anniversary of the Soummam Congress reflect the pride of belonging to a land built by the blood of the brave martyrs who sought in the new generation the love of the homeland, the national awareness and the loyalty for the message of November. The President of the Republic also paid tribute to the Mujahideen and Mujahidat or war veterans, as well as the valiant Shuhada or martyrs who sacrificed their lives for Algeria. The Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujil, has welcomed the interest shown by the President of the Republic to the issue of national memory and his commitment to preserving the social character of the state. In an interview granted to the Algerian television on the occasion of the celebration of the double anniversary of the North Constantine Offensive and the Soummam Congress held on August 20, 1955 and 1956, respectively, Salah Goujil highlighted the symbolism and importance of these two pivotal events in the history of the glorious November Revolution. And the Speaker of the Upper House of Parliament also welcomed the policy of the President of the Republic aimed at instilling the social nature of the state and taking charge of related issues. The member countries of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, said they were considering to carry out a new diplomatic mission to try and reach a peaceful settlement of the crisis in Niger. The announcement was made by the organization's Commissioner to the Political Affairs, Abdel Fattah Moussa, who said a possible diplomatic mission could be undertaken today to continue to follow a peaceful path towards a restoration of the constitutional order. At the end of a meeting of the Army Chiefs of Staff of the ECOWAS countries held in Accra, Ghana, he reiterated that the organization was ready to settle the crisis peacefully, but only if Niger's new leaders agreed on such initiative. ECOWAS Commissioner said a possible intervention in Niger was still possible or an option considered by the organization's leader, who have already set the date for its launching. He argued that the ECOWAS Army Chiefs meeting in Accra had agreed on the strategic objectives and the necessary equipment and reiterated the commitments of the organization's leaders to such a potential intervention. Earlier, the special representative of the UN Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, Leonardo Santos Simao, stated after meeting in Niamey, the Niger's newly appointed prime minister, that he was still convinced that restoring the constitutional legality was still possible thanks to dialogue. Meanwhile, the International Organization for Migration called in Geneva for the setting up of a humanitarian corridor to help the existing transit centers in Niger, where thousands of migrants are trapped. In the meantime, at least 28 civilians were killed in violent attacks and clashes carried out this week in several villages in the southwestern part of Niger. To the Middle East now, where the Palestinian authorities have rejected Israel's plan to devote $190 million to the building of more settlement units in the West Bank. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry said that the Israeli right-wing government was involved in a race against time to spoliate more land in order to speed up the progressive and undeclared annexation of the West Bank, including occupied Al-Quds. In this respect, it held the Israeli occupying authorities fully responsible for the construction and expansion of the Jewish settlements and their consequences on the whole region. Palestinian official figures put at over 600,000 the number of settlers living in the West Bank and in occupied Al-Quds. Meanwhile, one Palestinian died of wounds sustained during an operation carried out by the Israeli soldiers in the West Bank. He was hit in the head during incidents that erupted after the Israeli security forces stormed the refugee camp of Balata in Nablus. The Russian army said it had thwarted a Ukrainian drone attack targeting Moscow and its region. It stressed that the air defense forces managed to neutralize the drone that crashed in a desert region near Polikolov in the northwestern suburb of the capital. The Russian army assured having thwarted an attack targeting a military aircraft or airfield in Russia's northwestern region of Novgorod, bordering Ukraine. Earlier, the Russian army affirmed having eliminated 150 Ukrainian soldiers who were attempting to cross the Dnieper River, a frontline setup in Ukraine's southern part. And weather-related catastrophes are continuing to wreak havoc across several regions in the world, causing the death and the injury of hundreds of people and leaving thousands of others homeless. About 15,000 households have been ordered to evacuate in Canada's British Columbia as firefighters battle raging wildfires that have set homes ablaze. Officials said a significant number of buildings caused fire in West Kelowna, a city of 36,000 people, and more than 2,400 homes were evacuated. A state of emergency has been declared for the entire province, where hundreds of separate fires are burning hundreds of miles north. A huge fire edges towards the city of Yellowknife. In Hawaii, the head of the Maui Emergency Management Agency resigned on Thursday after officials came under increased scrutiny over the response to the devastating wildfires. Herman Andaya submitted his resignation just one day after he defended his decision of not using outdoor alert sirens before the fires overwhelmed the historic community of Lahaina and killed at least 111 people. Meanwhile, the search to find and identify victims remains painstakingly slow. Only 10 of the 111 victims so far killed in the fires have been identified. Firefighters on the Spanish island of Tenerife scrambled on Friday to contain a devastating fire described as the most complicated in the Canary Islands in 40 years after it blackened forests, prompted lockdowns, and forced thousands of people to evacuate. More than 4,500 people have been forced to flee their homes since the blaze began to spread early on Wednesday in a wooded and mountainous region in the island's north, where firefighters and troops from the Spanish armed forces have been struggling to limit the spread of the flames and divert them away from nearby settlements and homes. Meanwhile, residents in the southwest are bracing for heavy rains and potentially catastrophic flooding as Hurricane Hilary is expected to pummel the region as a rare tropical storm beginning Sunday and lasting into next week. Hilary remains a Category 4 hurricane as it marches towards the coast of Mexico's Baja California Peninsula with sustained winds of 130 kilometers per hour. According to the National Hurricane Center, its core is expected to pass close to the peninsula Saturday night and then weaken into a tropical storm as it crosses into the U.S. and Southern California. This came as India is heading for its driest August in more than a century, with scant rainfall likely to persist across large areas, partly because of the El Nino weather pattern, two weather department officials told the press. August rainfall, expected to be the lowest since records began in 1901, could dent yields of summer-sown crops from rice to soybeans, boosting prices and overall food inflation, which jumped in July to the highest since January 2020. China has carried out military maneuvers around Taiwan in what could be considered a serious warning in the aftermath of the visit by the island's Vice President William Lai to the U.S. The new China news agency said joint air and sea patrols were carried out today with the aim of testing the capacity of the Chinese planes and warships to take control of the air and maritime space. It stressed that the maneuvers were destined to fight in real conditions. And finally, back to Algeria, where the country or Algeria will participate in Egypt in the official competition of the Cairo International Festival of Experimental Theatre, scheduled to take place from September 1st to 8th. Algeria will participate with the play Nostalgia by the Theatre du Point Cooperative in Iran. Being one of the Arab shows selected for the official competition of this edition of the festival, the play Nostalgia, directed by Lakhdar Mansouri, benefited from the support of the Ministry of Culture and Arts and the Algerian National Theatre. Nostalgia is an adaptation of the play The Story of the Panda Bears, told by a saxophonist who has a girlfriend in Frankfurt, by the Franco-Romanian playwright Matei Visneac, translated by Abdelmajid Al-Hawas, and played on stage by the duo Asma Sheikh and Fathi Mebarki. The Cairo International Festival of Experimental Theatre is one of the oldest festivals dedicated to global experimental theatre in the Arab world. With this, we come to the end of it. We'll leave you now with our weekly program, starting with my colleague Mazar Al-Asfar and then my colleague Aziz Agassi. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin in English. Until then, stay tuned to Radio Algeria International, and goodbye for now.
جداك الغيث إذا الغيث هما يا زمان الوصل بالأندلس.
Constantine was originally created by the Phoenicians. Sirta, which means in Phoenician language, city carved into the rock. The city was taken over by Numidia, the country of the Berber people, after the defeat of the Phoenicians. The city later served as the base for Roman generals in their wars. Later, Julius Caesar gave special rights to the citizens of Sirta, now known as Constantine or Qsantina in Arabic. It was named after Emperor Constantine the Great. It was later conquered by the Arabs in the 7th century, receiving the name of Qsantina.
لم يكن وصلك إلا حلما في الكرى أو خنسة المختلسين ورواه آه
In 1826, the last Bey, Ahmed Bey bin Muhammad Sharif, became the head or governor of Constantine. He led a fierce resistance against French forces. In World War II, during the campaign in North Africa between 1942 and 1943, Constantine and the nearby cities like Sétif were used by the Allied forces as operational bases. Constantine is a city of suspended bridges that inspired Malouf singers with wonderful melodies. The word Malouf comes from the Arabic word Ma'louf, which means accustomed to the tradition, or more accurately, true tradition. Malouf is a classical Algerian heiress of Arabic music based on a system of 24 nubats, which are the theoretical rules and unchanged since the late 9th century. These nubats were maintained through oral tradition. This music is implanted in the culture of many large cities of the Maghrebian regions as Fez, Tlemcen, Algiers, Constantine, Tunis, and Annaba. Malouf is played by small orchestras consisting of violins, drums, sitars, and flutes. Malouf is based on qasida, a kind of classical Arabic poetry that comes in many forms, including the post-classical muwashshaha, which abandons many of qasida's rules, and zajjal, a modern genre with unique format.
يا ناس ما تعذروني في بلدي حال
Malouf is still performed in public, especially at weddings and circumcision ceremonies, though recordings are relatively rare. One of the pillars of Malouf is Al-Hajj Muhammad Tahir Al-Farghani, who was born on May 9, 1928 in Constantine, and whose real name Raghani, son of Sheikh Hammu, is a famous singer, musician, and composer. He's also considered one of the masters of Malouf. His singing is often described as an exquisite harmony. The power of his voice embodies a degree of quality interpretation that charms many music lovers. He remains one of the few singers to interpret his compositions for 4 octaves. His father, who came from a family of music lovers, was already a virtuoso, another genre. At the age of 18, he devoted himself entirely to music. In 1951, he pointed to a musical contest. He won first prize. Winning on several occasions and on both national and international level, it remains one of the major references. His acute sense of melody, his unparalleled genius in improvisation, the richness of his style, his skills in handling the violin held upright, and his daring to go beyond its limits. For him, it is the best reward for such a long career. Furthermore, Al-Hajj Farghani had the merit to bring the Malouf in his heart, beyond national borders, with a lot of talent, confidence, and wisdom. His famous songs include Billah Ya Hamani, Nuba Sika, Bisharraf Maya.
والله ما نقطع
Constantine, the beautiful city, where I grew up, Constantine. The velvet gondolas, the bays, the suspended bridges. History speaks to you, Constantine. Let me see Suiqa. I love her, whatever you could say. Oh, Constantine. I mean the Souq al-Asr and Qasba. It is good to be back to Constantine. Sidi Rashid I return to see. One who pays you a visit is filled with joy, oh Constantine. Let me see Zohra. I love her, whatever you could say, Constantine. Today the man is over 80, has marked generations over 60 years of artistic practice.
من الذي يحييني وشوف السير يداويني فقوم حييني وعلى نسري وحور العين يداويني يا خاطر حسنك الفتان أنت هو سلطان أنت هو سلطان والحبيب أنا يا سعدني حبيبي